I'm going to flip through these first three slides.
Next slide. Thank you to SJSU for sponsoring this. And my name is Professor David Loertscher, and I am accompanied today by
Katie Sazdanoff, Dr. Loertscher's graduate assistant.
So we're thrilled to have all of you with us today. I thought I would start this presentation by just a little bit of history. I have been fortunate to live almost the history of this, the rise of the school library. It actually happened in 1958 when the Russians put up Sputnik, and suddenly our nation panicked, and we got lots of money in education to try to educate scientists and all sorts of things. And that was 58. We had the really good standards for school libraries in 1960 when, and then Professor Mary Gaver at Rutgers testified before Congress that elementary schools with librarians scored higher on reading tests than schools that did not have librarians. And so that, with that, we went into the whole era of both books and then audiovisual materials. And we were pretty successful until the microcomputer happened, and somehow we didn't quite grasp that quick enough, and that led to the rise of instructional technologists in the schools. And so ISTE, for example, is much larger than ASL these days. And then, of course, has come along, the internet and the smartphone and all of these things, bringing up the question, do we really need school libraries these days? Isn't everything right at the fingertips of students on their preferred device? And so we are in challenging times. And so in response to that, the next slide, please. A couple of years ago, I created what's called the Alive Library Project. And you see a virtual reality entrance into it. And there are 9 rooms that have topical 9 different roles, I think, that teacher librarians could perform in the school. And there's interviews there, and also places to talk about issues. And the whole idea is to let superintendents, principals, board members, parents, administrators, and librarians to say, what's a really great school library look like, feel like, act like? We started interviewing people that were nominated by their peers as great, exceptional school librarians. And so they'd be by their association, School Library Journal, that sort of thing. And so we ended up with, so far, 31 world-class, what I call world-class school librarians. And I think these people already are like signal us toward 2035. And that's what we want to show you today. Next slide. And so during this, let's see, next slide.
Let's see here. There we go.
Okay. So we'd like you to join in, and this link is to a Google form. And as we talk about the characteristics of really great school librarians, you can go in, and it's a Google form, and you can name a characteristic and you can describe it in 1 sentence, and then you can reply as many times as you want. So that's our attempt to encourage all of you who are attending to participate. Next slide. So the three of us reviewed three on the research team, looked at all of the interviews, and we identified, we condensed everything, and through we each recorded each one and summarized and re-summarized and re-summarized, and we ended up with 8 major characteristics that we have discovered in these world-class librarians as they exist right now. So Katie, help me my eyes today, and she's going to help me get through. And I'm going to introduce you to all these characteristics.
Yes, so the first characteristic is culture and community. And the example of that is Dr. Melanie Sanchez.
Well, Melanie is this kind of person who she goes into her school and she studies the community. I mean, she studies the type of students, the curriculum, the administration, and then the parents. And then she goes out to all of the community and finds that she's in the middle of great historic sites, very close to an American history. And then virtually she realizes that she can connect students to communities all over the world. And so that's exactly what the main focus that she does is through the history program and other curricular areas in the school. She just helps these students experience in real time, both virtual field trips as well as real field trips, and parents come along and everyone knows Dr. Sanchez, because she's so well known, so well organized, and these are celebratory adventures for the entire school community as well as the larger community. And she links into government organizations in the town and local museums and anybody that can really help in the educational program. And I think in the future, in 2035, that's what we're looking at. It's a combination of not just a library, but it's the entire community coming together and melding together into educating the next generation of young people who need to be able to solve the great problems of the world. And even though we don't know what the future might not be like greatly, everyone can help. And that's what I think that will still last across the next decade. Next slide.
Next slide is characteristic 2, library concept. And the example of that is Lisa Bishop.
Well, Lisa is in San Francisco, and the best way, if you actually visited her library, you would see that she was an early adopter of the notion of a library learning commons. And your best, don't ask her for a tour. Just sit down and watch what's happening for 30 minutes, and you'll see the huge difference she has made. So there'll be individuals and small groups and large groups and teachers coming in and bringing their classes. And since she is both verbal in Spanish as well as English, teachers love to bring their whole classes in, because then the Spanish-speaking kids can understand a lot more what's going on, and their success rate goes way up. And so there's all kinds of projects going on. You know, you can read a book, you can write a book, you can watch a video, you can create a video, and all of this sort of stuff transforms the library into not just a place to consume knowledge, but also to create knowledge. So she's just wonderful. I think in 2035, that whole idea will still be alive, that kids and teenagers need to not only consume the great knowledge that's out there, but also create it and participate in solving the problems that, of course, face them as individuals and also our society as a whole. Next one.
Characteristic 3 is expertise, and the example of that is Janet Wiles.
Janet Wiles is in Fresno, California. And she's a teacher for many years. Then she is the high school librarian for a while. And then she becomes the district library coordinator. And all along her path, as well as so many other people in our sample from both Canada and the US, they keep building on what they learned, quote, in library school or in their credential program. They don't, that's just a start. And what they do is they keep developing and developing and developing. And what Janet has been able to do as district leader, she's been able to sell the idea that all the middle schools in Fresno ought to have credentialed librarians. And so she uses all of the techniques she knows and is able to get 3 schools staffed with credentialed people for 3 years as a major experiment. And I think as we look into 2035, it's that whole idea that librarians have to be constant learners. And in other words, they cannot rely that their credential program is just the beginning. And they have to be a lifetime learner. And they have to build expertise in technology, artificial intelligence, whatever the changes in the curriculum, the changes in the kids that are coming in. And they have to put all of this together, including so standards, for example, national standards are not just AASL, they're also ISTE standards, and they worry about reading standards and science standards, etc. And all of this comes, and if you understand that, then you build around that sort of greater knowledge, what's actually happening in the learning commons. Next slide.
Characteristic 4 is program management, and the example of that is Dr. Deborah Frogut.
Okay, similarly, Dr. Frogut is in Boston, and again, she's a teacher, and then she's a librarian, and for quite a few years. And she starts to worry about the 150 schools in Boston, and that most of which do not have credentialed librarians or librarians at all. And so she is a master of management. She knows how to get stuff done, and she understands politics. And she understands when you're going to propose something, you better have some evidence behind what you're doing. And so she figures out, first, she builds a virtual library commons. And this is a template for each one of the schools in the 150 schools. And it has on it all of the resources that the district has, but then each individual school has their own, and they add what they have at the local school. So she starts with that project, and that takes a while to get it rolling, but people start to see that that kids and teachers are starting to use these additional resources. And then she goes for the big ticket, which is trying to get credentialed librarians across Boston. And what she does is she takes the current librarians, and they build evidence. and they build evidence and more evidence of what they're contributing to teaching and learning in the school. And then she starts presenting this, and it takes her a couple of rounds. But when she gets no the first time, she doesn't stop. She knows how to deal with failure. And now she has got this Boston School District, for 3 rounds, they are building another 30 librarians, okay, and kind of each round that they're doing. So I think in 2035, these super managers are the type of person that's going to keep school libraries going. They are smart, they are organized, they understand the major trends, they know how to make a superintendent look great, they know how to make a principal look great, they know how to make a teacher look great. And they use these skills. And if you want to see a lot of these kind of things happening, go to Canada, the Pacific coast, on the west side of Canada. Come on, senior moment. And you'll see learning commons in most schools there. And that has happened and evolved because of the management skills of the leadership there in the Pacific Northwest. So next slide.
The next slide is characteristic 5, library environment, including technology. And the example of that is EdHub library staff, Jen Gilberts and Kendra Waddle, and the superintendent of EdHub Library, Buddy Berry.
Well, when I discovered this crazy superintendent, Buddy Berry, in Eminence, Kentucky, that's outside Louisville in a little tiny town, he is incredible. He wants to he grew up in that little town, and he knows that these kids never go to college. But he got a chance to go to college, and he decides to return back home and try to help these kids have opportunity in life. And so, but he believes in a whole different educational program. He's into self-directed learners. He wants the learner right at the table to help decide what kind of education they want. They are in control. It's not just what the adults want me to do. It's what I need to learn myself to be a successful citizen and have a great career. And so what he does is he gets this town. He has only about 500 kids in it, and there's declining enrollments all around him. And he starts this school. He gets a major grant, and he builds this EdHub, and it is a gorgeous building. He calls it the EdHub because he thinks it's a glorified library with all kinds of making and doing, etc. It's a wonderful place to visit. And then he hires a full-time librarian, and he hires a great language arts teacher who is really good at technology. And these two make the EdHub just really pop. I interviewed 2 senior grade 11 girls in this, and I said, "Why are you in this school?" And they said, "We love this school. We love it because we are in charge of what we want to know and learn." And the one girl said, "I've been in many schools, and this is the best school I've ever been in." And they do all kinds of invention, creation in the EdHub. And the problem that Buddy Berry has is now his enrollment is not 600, it's 1,000. Because and all around him in the whole area, parents are knocking at his doors, wanting to get their kids into a place that is absolutely fabulous. I think that sort of thing in 2035 is exactly where we're going. It's called personalized education. And it's called opportunity, 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 helping every single learner grow and build their potential. Next slide.
Next slide is characteristic 6, literacy. Our example is Morgan Cahoney.
Well, Morgan is something else. She comes to be the librarian in a school where most of the school, almost all the school kids, speak only Haitian or Creole. And when these kids come from Haiti, and they do not know what a book is. They've never experienced a book. They have no literacy. They only have their language, and they don't know any English at all, of course. And so what does Morgan do as the librarian? Well, she gathers the faculty together. She does. She gathers the faculty together and says, what can we do to give these kids opportunity? And so what they do is they start from zero. And they introduce books and reading and English. And after 10 years of this, they are getting their kids into the top schools in Boston. Now, if you can, if you can create a bigger miracle than that, I don't know what is. But I think in literacy, another trend that we see in all of these wonderful people is the idea of literacy is expanded. It's not just reading, it's also digital literacy, media literacy, science, any social emotional learning, any of these major literacies that we are saying to kids, you need to have these skills no matter what the future is going to be. And so to be successful. And I think that, again, is another characteristic that will be very present in 2035. It's personalized education. It's opportunity, basic literacy, advanced literacy, information literacy, all these things that make a real foundation that kids can then build their careers on. Next slide.
Characteristic 7, collaboration. And our example is Dr. Brian Johnson.
Well, Dr. Brian Johnson is in Springdale, Arkansas. And in the school, his part of town, all the parents work at Tyson cutting chickens. And so the kids come to school and they have no concept of what success is beyond cutting chickens, because that's what happens. And so you can imagine a whole school that is bored silly. They don't want to learn anything. They're not interested in anything. They're only doing friends and whatevers and getting along and just waiting to get their, getting old enough to get their job in the factory, and that's going to be their lives, Well, Dr. Brian Johnson has different ideas, and he has the expertise that he's added. He loves science and he loves technology. And so what he does, if you watch his thing, is he takes very fascinating science experiments that he works with the teachers on. And he brings these kids in and he just wows them with a problem to solve. And suddenly these bored kids wake up to something that they get involved with in creating and solving, that the whole outlet, the whole culture of the school changes.
Dr. Loertscher, I'm sorry, but we're running out of time. I'm going to head on to the next characteristic.
Okay.
Which is characteristic 8, collection. The example is
Okay.
Michael Gillard.
Michael Gillard is in South Carolina in the governor's school. And his kids have to apply to get in. And he's got rich kids, poor kids, but there's only about 300 of them. But there's 2 full-time librarians, 2 full-time tech directors, about 6 or 7 helpers, and they open it's a boarding school. So they open the library from 7 in the morning till 10 at night. And I'll tell you, his collection is as great as any academic library in music, art, it's a humanities school. And so the collection that he builds is so good. And the kids there have all kinds of help. And that's what I see across all of these interviewees. Diversity has come in. They learn to build collections that really support not only just physical books, of course, but the whole OERs and virtual learning commons and all of that sort of stuff. It is just amazing. And I think that will last. It, again, is personalized service, great collections to support what individual kids need. Not what a company says they need to know, not what a standard needs to know, but beyond that, so that the kids, the success rate goes up. Next slide.
And this is our major announcement slide.
We have a major announcement. So I have been most interested in trying to kind of stimulate major research in our field, and to follow along and to support and keep us rolling. And so I'd like to introduce to you the just as is happening as we speak. And that is a new free, open, online research peer-reviewed journal that is called Learning Hub. And in this, it will be, many of you know Teacher Librarian, and it's Teacher Librarian to squared. And it will have a lot of, it's sponsored by SJSU, but it will have partners, hopefully, of many library schools, library educators, but also individual researchers. And it will have all sorts of action research, peer-reviewed research, announcements, major theory articles, but not just from the school library field, but hopefully from the part across education. And I'd like, so if you'd like to, just this morning, they opened the sandbox to me to start the construction of that. And we were early 2025, we're gonna have this open. So if you'd like to help in building a whole research background center that could communicate across the world, I'd love to hear from you. And also, so what we can also do is, if you've had put ideas in the chat, in a Google form, all of you can see that link and we can look at those, but also open the mic to any of you that want to ask a question. How many minutes do we have left?
You know, we are right at 1:30 and I'm not sure if I also will put the link up to the research paper, so everybody has that.
Yeah. So yes, this is all, we hope this research article will get peer reviewed and maybe appear in the new journal. So
If there are any questions, I can read them out if you'd like to put them in the chat box. Don't see any thank yous. I certainly see those. Okay, thank you.